and welcome back. We're here at the Marketer of the Day podcast with Miss Dee Tozer. That's last name Tozer. And if you are a couple in crisis that urgently needs expert accelerated relationship repair from not your average therapist, then you need the couples master coach who has helped 6,000 couples. And that's who we're here with today. We're here with Miss Dee Tozer. She is the author of Affair Repair, and she is a psychologist and author, and she guides high-achieving couples in crisis to rapid repair so they can build quickly after betrayal. So, Ms. Dee Tozer, glad to be speaking with you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me on here. Yeah, always very happy to speak about what I do. Not many people do speak about it, and not many people know that there's one person that just has such a little tight niche.
Right, and that's you. And so tell us about it. If we want someone to be listening and say, oh my gosh, where has Dee been all my life? She's who I need exactly. Who are we serving?
So, well, I've been a psychologist for 3 decades, and that's lots of couples, as you said before. And during that time, I coach more than I do therapy. So couples therapy has been the old word to describe working with couples for the last 30 odd years. And I realised not long into it, in the early 90s, that I was more coach style. So I really didn't ever call myself a couples therapist. So, and I now am all talking about coaching, and I've done master coaching. I teach it to others now, and it's couples master coaching. It's on a shortened program. It's not endless. It has deadline. We know exactly what we're doing to a structure every week, different things we cover for each couple, but the couple come into a place where the understandings around infidelity and all the different words people use for it are so ingrained in what I do that I'm not going off on tangents anywhere else, but I'm still repairing the couple. And it's not dissimilar. It's similar work to any repair work we do for couples, whether they're doing the old style long-term therapy or whatever, but I'm not your average therapist, as you read out. So yes, I've branded years ago as the couples master coach, and people can come in here with an expertise that doesn't mess around. Okay, there's no blame and no shame at all, but it's not, and it's direct, but not in that way. It doesn't mess around. It goes straight, literally, to the heart of the matter. Pardon the pun.
Okay, and we love puns, right? They're memorable. It makes us laugh. It keeps it light, and it makes us understand what you're all about. So you've done what a lot of people talk about, but not everyone does, which is niche down to say, oh my gosh, here's my ikigai, they call it, right? You say, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I like. Here's what there's to demand for. Here's what helps people. And so am I to understand that you only focus on couples that have had an affair, who've had the infidelity?
Yes.
And what
100%.
do you think? Okay, well, great. So what should we know if someone was about to approach you for your help? What do you wish they knew going in before even speaking with you?
That they are coming into something that's direct and so full of expertise. I don't want to be putting myself out bragging at all, but that I've got an instinct that can tell me exactly what I need to do with each person's personality. And what they do is the big difference I do is I see each person in the couple individually every week of their program, plus a joint couple session together. Now, in traditional couples therapy, that's off the table to see them individually. We can do 1 or 2 just to assess them. It's not enough. So I coach them both through it individually. Means they can vent. They can share all their private stuff and not feel like they're going to be upsetting the other person and come into the session miserable and go out more miserable. We don't want that. We want them to come in and go out a much more uplifted, aware person, self-aware, whatever. So I do it that way. So that's what I want them to know, is they fully get heard and understood. They are fully heard and understood. Yeah. And I do a lot of education to show what often has gone wrong that led to someone being tempted.
And what does go wrong? Because it seems like a sticky situation, right? It just, as a layperson, it seems like this kind of thing where you hear about like the cries for help, or what's the deeper meaning, or what led
Yep.
up to this, or what's this really about? It seems like just such a mess to even think about. And so what kind of education do we need? What is cheating all about?
Yes. Well, there's several views on it, and we know about we all hear a lot more about once a cheater, always a cheater, therefore you can't fix it. However, my work is done with, and pretty well always I can pick up where disapproval started. So I talk about disapproval ruins, destroys relationships, destroys close connection, destroys desire, destroys intimacy. Disapproval, which comes in the form of criticism, accusations, irritability, intolerance, lots of areas. But it fundamentally boils down to, if we show disapproval enough and it's coming across in a way that's fully pushing someone away, the likelihood of them being tempted by someone else's attention, making them feel like, they are somebody, they matter, is very high. It gets higher and higher the longer the disapproval goes on. And disapproval is the most destructive thing in relationships, in my view.
And they say there's these things like the four horsemen, right? Which is like,
Yep.
of course, not the same, but similar thinking of like, well, you being rude to your partner. And so as far as this idea of disapproval, like, do you ever come across couples where someone says, I was nice to them, I did everything right, and they still cheated on me? Is that a thing, even factoring in disapproval?
Yes, yes, it comes up. Usually when I dig into it, they still have not. They might have been nice enough, but there was still a lot of a thread going through of disapproval, or a thread of disappointment in the other person, which is disapproval. It's a form of disapproval. So the four horsemen, I'm very familiar with. I use it all the time. They've got criticism's the first one. The second one's contempt. Now, we can't have contempt, put downs, looking down on somebody without criticism, but we can have criticism without the contempt, looking down on that person part. So most of my couples that I see have had a lot of contempt in it, even if they say I've always been nice to them. When I go digging in, we can see it's been delivered with a sense of, I'm always nice to you, you should be. You must. You need to, because I'm nice. I look after you, I do everything. So while it's a good superficial line, it doesn't necessarily reflect the truth, the reality.
Okay, well, fair enough. And so we need to treat our partners better. And you figure, okay, well, if what happened, right? You can't change the past. And I imagine it's a good sign if both couples are willing to see you, right? If they're both willing to talk this out, have therapy, and it seems like they're both willing to come to the table. And so what kind of work happens? Like, does it usually work out? Is it sometimes you start and then they say, I didn't know what I was getting myself into? Like, what's this uphill climb towards getting better?
Well, I'll take it in two parts. I rarely ever have it where a couple doesn't do well. I had one couple last year in 24. They didn't. They managed to get through I do 12 weeks, sometimes extend on longer. Some people do a second round. Anyway, whatever. Primarily, basic one we do. And then, but, I had one couple who made it to 6 weeks and still couldn't sort out. But we really didn't have both partners on board. So when I've got both partners on board, I've never had anybody drop out or decide, and they do really well. I run my data around 94 to 96% range who do really well, and I check 6 months later, a year later, and 2 years later, with their permission, of course, that they want to be reminded of it with me checking in, because by the time they get over it, they've healed, they've revitalised. They often don't want to be reminded about that whole phase of things. But then those that do, that high number, come back and tell me, and that they've done really well. They remember the whole process of the key things, and most of it is around shifting them out of disapproval zone and that thinking into how do you frame it all up and speak in an approving, open way, where you're open space to be able to stay connected and work through all the things that life dishes up to us, really.
And what kind of
Yeah.
difficulties do people come across? You say they need to be more open and go
Mm.
from disapproval to approval, and that sounds great, but many times we're trapped in our own thinking, we self-sabotage, we come up with excuses, and that's why we need someone like you, right? To
Mm.
reframe and to
Yeah.
put in the time and work on things. And so, like, what are the difficulties? What are the resistances towards fixing this problem?
Well, the resistances are in the beginning. So the first 3 or 4 weeks I stabilise them in this 3 month, 12-week program. And in the resistance stabilising part, where the resistance is I'm reducing them down by showing them or bringing to right up front a vision of what life will be like when they've moved into the new zone of, let's say, validation, approval, acceptance, acknowledgement, adapting to what happened. And they can see themselves that they've been living in the short term. Now I must win, I must be right now. I'm right, you're wrong idea. And to shift over, it's not as hard as people think, but that is the barrier, is where people, a partner or both, think they are right and they have to win and they have to stop the other person even explaining their side of it, or can't have a discussion because they keep cutting each other off. Their conversational style is usually the major culprit.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, so they need to have this better conversation style and not be so fixated on being right and
Mm.
listen to the other person. And since this is a podcast, we love stories, right? It's one thing to
Yeah,
to get these principles and the advice that you've given, but to get wrapped up in a
sure.
story and to think like, man, I could see myself going through this. I could go through
Yeah.
this process. Do you have a fun story to share? I know you shared a little bit, but just as far as like the couple came to you, they had a problem, you worked them through the transformation. What do you have success story wise?
I've got so many. Where would I start? I should have been a bit more prepared, maybe. I'll go with one one recentish one, um, where a couple came back to me after 5 years ago. They came for a tune-up back 5 years ago. They'd more come for crisis work because they were going to break up. There hadn't been an affair. Then an affair happened, and they came. Anyway, in the middle of it, the affair happened, and then they thought to come back to me because we'd worked through a lot of the communication stuff, but they didn't retain that information and were unable to budge, if you like, in showing the other person, listening, making them feel heard, whatever. So what had happened was that the male partner, let's go with, he had developed a very sarcastic, joking style with her. Now, after the repair work they did with me, he had managed to pretty well bring that under control and not use the sarcasm, but it gradually crept back in to the point where his wife was attacking him over it and he couldn't hear it. And she kept saying, look, when we were talking with Dee, you were able to do it. Now you can't. But it was still coming across as her disapproving of his joking style. So what I did right early on was show him and her how to have a conversation around the fact he was still being funny, but it was at her expense. And he hadn't realised it. And we ended up doing, but then this affair had happened. So we were working on that, and this humour was coming through. So we were able to, so I'm using that one because it's humour and a bit more fun to say, because some of the things he said in another context were very funny. All right. And they might be in a group scenario, a social event, or in a business meeting or something. And he'd just have a side swipe at her, but in a joking way, and didn't realise it was actually put downs. So, and it was, funny things like, why do you always go that way home? When she was driving them home from somewhere. I knew we'd go this way because you always go that way. It's going to take longer, but okay, that's you. So we wouldn't think a lot of it, but after a lot of her and years together, that gets annoying. We've had
Oh
enough of
yeah.
it. It's disapproval, and we don't even feel like it's disapproval. So anyway, once he got it, and it took about, 4 weeks in, he went, I know what to say instead now. I'll just say, I was going to say something funny, but I won't. He couldn't see that was still a put down. So I said
Wow.
to him, but that's still saying, Can you hear that? You're going to say, oh, no. He could not. He'd grown up in a family where they use sarcastic humour all the time, derogatory. So we got him to say other things like, I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I want to let you know how much I care about you. And that shifted his mindset straight away. And then she would have a laugh about that then. She could laugh at that and say, oh, that's good, thank you. Or he'd say, oh, that's nice. Yeah, well, you can say it. All right, what were you going to say? And then he'd say, I'm not going to say it. I don't need you. That happened. That was instabilizing the first few weeks. Then it got to the point he just dropped it totally out of his vocabulary. It all went.
Ooh,
So I
nice.
don't know if that's the type of story that you mean, because it's hard for me to do without disclosing things. Some of the things that I would tell you about could be recognised by people who maybe look at this. I don't know. Very
Of
careful.
course. Yeah, and
Mm.
it's good to be careful, but those are still some helpful insights, especially about just replacing the bad behavior. Like it doesn't happen
Yes.
overnight. We might not
No.
even notice it. And then
Yeah.
especially if someone kind of brings it up in the moment, it's hard for that to be received. And then even if it does get through, then our replacement behavior might not even be good. So there's a lot to navigate, right? There may be some missteps and false starts, but what you're
Mm.
bringing up there, it reminds me that whenever we want to change a behavior, no matter what it is, such as kind of being disrespectful to our partner, we can't just drop it, and we can't just drop it instantly, right? We have to
No.
like replace it
Yeah.
with something else and go through kind of that temporary phase and keep reminding
Mm.
ourselves like why we're doing it. And it might take some kind of conscious effort to like, keep someone else's perception of ours in mind and to retrain these habits. But again, that's why we need you, right? We need to have this conversation with you. And so it's great to think about how change and recovery and repairing and improving the relationship is possible, but that sometimes we do backslide, right? Sometimes we let
Yes.
our guard down and we say, okay, I'll kind of stop trying so hard. And next thing you know, like it's bad behavior after bad behavior. So in this context of affair repair and what you do as far as a couples master coach, I want to make sure that we cover what you like and what excites you. So in this conversation, what am I not asking you that I should be asking you?
Oh, what a great question, Robert. Um, Let me go with that. Well, can I show you another book I have? It's not a
Yes,
book
please.
like that book. It's a playbook. And this kind of, I don't know if you can see it there. It's called Get Your Relationship Right, What's Gone Wrong and How to Get It Right. And it's a book of 670 something pages and all these pictures of everything I cover. Okay. So everybody gets that. And then they can now, and it's only 4 or 5 years old. So now everyone's got that to go back and refer to. They've got notes and all that. So it's not a homework book. We don't do homework. What we do is help people see a lightened up version of the impact they're having on their spouse. So all that I do, I used to call my business Impact Couples Psychology, okay? Because it was all about the impact on the other person. So what I do and what I love to do is shift each partner from them, to her, him to her to him. So they're going, I'm in your shoes now. I'm sitting there feeling this. And once they get that, everything goes into a harmonious, much more respectful, warm, loving togetherness, I call it. And so what could you ask me about all that is, I guess maybe how long does that take? It's a few weeks is all. So yes, we have to practice, and yes, people do slide. But once they have their antenna, their radar rediverted from inward here, how I'm feeling, I feel. I don't do much of that at all. That still does come up and it weaves through. But my stuff is all on how is he feeling and how is she feeling? And how can you change how he or she is feeling? That is how I do it from that angle. Does that fit with the question you asked or not really?
Well, it tells us that empathy is really important, and that it's really difficult to understand how the other person feels and what we might be dishing out and receiving, and so it's just helpful to like put yourself in the other person's shoes, and then for also you to
Yeah.
understand. And I imagine that it takes a lot of like time and repetition, but that's why we need these things like the colorful workbook to make it fun. that way we stick
Yeah.
with it and persevere and
Yeah.
get through it.
Mm. Mm. And I the first, the precursor to this one from 5 years ago, a couple sent me a photo just to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year thing, of their books that they had, the earliest one. It was the very first run edition of it. To say they still got them. They're in pride of place in their study, and they've got a little tot, 2-year-old, and they said, we don't know what we're going to tell her it's called. They're called, because they've each got theirs with their name on it. They said, we still look at them every few weeks. We would pull a page open and have a conversation about it on a Sunday night. I was
Very cool.
shocked by that. But they said it reminds them to think about the impact they're having. And then that brings them close again. Yeah, because everybody, life gets in the way, kids get in the way, everything we know, business, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not about trying to be perfect.
Right. It's about sticking with it and
Yeah.
revisiting. And I had a friend the other day that said, if you pay attention to your teeth, they'll stay. And if you don't pay attention, then your teeth will leave you. And so that can apply to many things, right? You kind of revisit and you give your relationship the nurturing and the attention that it deserves, especially with all the various distractions of life, kids, business, and everything else. And so if
Yeah.
someone is excited about taking some next steps here, right? You showed the workbook, you talked about your coaching. We said that you help a very specific type of couple. So can you kind of remind us like who your ideal client is, and if they fit the profile, how they can contact you and find out more?
Okay. So they are usually high achieving business people, either own their own business or up in the high in the corporate ladder, where everything's gotten in the way of their relationship, where or it's either where the one partner, spouse, is up there, or sometimes both of them, and this is common, are in the same business. So they're in a very high-powered business that's quite a lot of them are right across the United States. They're high-powered. They know who to go to for the best if they want the investor, the best, finance advisor, the best lawyer. They know all that. They don't have a clue what to do about their relationship, and the relationship tends to get neglected as life and business and aspirations take over. Okay, so they're aspirational people. They want to work quickly. They don't want to go into average anything. They're certainly not going to go into a therapist's office where they might get recognised and have open-ended therapy going on for a year or 2 or 3 or 5 after something like this. So they want something quick fix. We'll do it. We'll jump online. We'll jump in on my car. I'll pull off the highway, freeway, whatever, pull into a park, do that, or I'm running around doing the whatever in the park, gym-wise, workout-wise. So jump on their phone, do their Zoom with me, get on calls. I do a lot of private support calls where they do like safety net calls, and they do a 15, 20-minute call they book with me. So we get this whole support thing going where they're focused, immersed, and engaged for 12 weeks. And they often a little bit doubtful when they come in, but it's what fits with them and the way they work. They're fast action people. They make things happen quickly. And they want to be with someone that understands their business world, understands all that, and then also moves this through quickly too. So that's the niche, really. They're probably mainly over 40 plus, but not always. I've just recently had a couple in their mid-30s that are out of there with 2 little children. So I don't know how better to describe it other than it doesn't matter which partner did the betraying, who was unfaithful, and it can be even just simply Instagram posting. It doesn't even have to be a physical, not even any romantic anything. They'll come to me to fix that up too. And we do that. It takes just as long, believe it or not, to fix that up as it does some physical thing that's been going 2 years. Yeah.
And there does seem to be more awareness about this, right? Some of these terms, like the emotional affairs, like there's kind of different types.
Yes.
It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be physical sort of betrayal. And so it's great that you've put to light and put a label on some of these things and discuss with us some of these solutions. And we said that your book is called Affair Repair. And then the other
Yes.
one that you held up was Get Your Relationship Right, What's Gone Wrong and How to Get
Yeah.
It Right. And then you
Yes.
have this website, DeeTozer, where you can find that your relationship deserves the love and care of repair and the healing. in the best and gentlest way possible. Miss Dee Tozer has, or we said that 2,300 couples in crisis after fidelity and 5,500 couples at a breaking point from other emotional disconnection. And Dee Tozer has helped many people deal with this situation. She has these different sorts of packages. And so we talked about all kinds of things, talked about all sorts of possibilities as far as like a single next step after this, right? We mentioned all these resources, but what should someone
Yeah.
do if they say, hey, Miss Dee Tozer is someone that can help me? I know you serve clients in Dubai and America, but where should someone logically go after this podcast? How can they get your help?
On the website, Robert, thank you, where that just has on homepage, book your introductory call. It's a no charge 45-minute call. That's the best way to get me. It's got everything on the website. Interesting. I better get it updated actually, because the numbers that are put there that you just read out, that's way outdated now. It's way more. So I will have to get someone to look at it, but it's sort of a, slides off because I just do what I do. But I must get that updated. Thank you for drawing it to my attention. Yes. So just the website,
Well,
book the introductory call. And there's plenty of articles on the website. I've got a lot of blogs, a lot of articles. I've done a lot of media interviews and things like that there, so they can find out more about me.
wonderful. It's great to get educated and to bust out of your own thinking and say, I know I made mistakes. I know that I was not as careful or as attentive or had as much respect as I should have. And it's time to move out of disapproval and into approval with the
Yeah.
help of Miss Dee Tozer and her amazing coaching and help that she applies to executive couples, power couples in business, couples over 40, just dealing with this infidelity issue. You go to deetozer.com. That's DEETOZER.com. You scroll down, there's a button there to book your introductory call and have that conversation and discuss possibilities and see what can be done. And before I let you go, Miss Dee Tozer, it's time for the scary part of the show where I try to put you on the spot a little bit and I ask you for a fun quote or lesson that has served you in life or in business. So what comes to mind for you as far as a fun quote or lesson?
Well, my name is Dee, D-E-E, and this is called Triple D, 3 Ds, okay? But it's just D. It's both a little bit of it's a play on words, but it's also serious. So it is these 3 words: disapproval destroys desire.
Ooh.
So it is disapproval always that it's the bottom of where couples fall apart. That's, yeah.
Disapproval destroys desire. Well, let's think about that, consider that, and live better, especially as we go to deetozer.com and get that help and assistance and support that we need, because life is too short to live wondering what I could have done better and driving yourself crazy. Get some additional help from Miss Dee Tozer. She's an international affair repair couples master coach. She's been featured in Forbes Women and many other locations. So get in touch with her to get that rapid repair and rebuild quickly after betrayal. Miss Dee Tozer, wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Robert. Wonderful to speak with you too.